You keep hearing the same thing. Inflation is cooling. The economy is steady. The worst is behind us. So why does the one bill you can't cancel, the one that keeps the lights on and the fridge running, keep creeping higher every few months? That's the contradiction we want to sit with today. Because the official story and the number at the bottom of your power bill are telling you two different things, and you're not imagining the gap. Here's the real question. What is actually pulling that bill up when everything else is supposedly calming down? Let's decode this together. Underneath all the headlines, something big is shifting. For most of the last 20 years, the economy ran on one idea: getting things cheap and fast. Lean supply chains, low-cost goods, just enough inventory to keep shelves full and not a single box more. It worked, right up until it didn't. That world is quietly being replaced. The money, the big institutional money that moves markets, is rotating toward a different set of priorities. We can boil them down to 4 letters: HEAD, healthcare, energy, AI, and defense. Think of it as the economy trading speed for safety. Instead of building everything as cheaply as possible, governments and large companies are now paying up for backup, for reliability, for making sure the lights and the chips and the medicine don't run out when something goes wrong. And here's the part that matters for you. When the whole economy decides to pay for safety, a slice of that bill doesn't stay in the boardroom. It travels. So why now? Because the last few years taught everyone a hard lesson. A factory shutdown on the other side of the world can empty your local shelves. One pipeline problem or a single conflict can spike your heating bill. When a system is built only for efficiency, it has no slack. And no slack means every shock lands straight on households. The mechanism behind all of this has a name. It's the move from just-in-time to just-in-case. Just-in-time means keep almost nothing in reserve and order it the moment you need it. The just-in-case approach means stockpile, build backup, bring production closer to home. Safety costs more than speed, and somebody always pays the difference. Part of that cost shows up in raw materials. The metals and minerals inside everything from your phone to the power grid are getting harder to get. According to the OECD, the number of export restrictions on these critical materials has risen 5-fold since 2009. More countries are guarding their own supply, which makes the stuff everything is built from pricier and slower to source. Here's where it touches you, and here's where that climbing power bill finally makes sense. The biggest engine inside HEAD right now is the AI buildout. And AI doesn't really float in the cloud. It lives in enormous warehouses full of computers called data centers. And those data centers are staggeringly hungry for electricity. A single one of these campuses can draw as much electricity as a small city, and it runs flat out day and night, never taking a weekend off. When dozens of those plants plug into the same regional grid, they compete with your house for the same power. Utilities then have to build new lines, new plants, and new equipment to keep up, and those costs get spread across everyone's bill, including yours. This is the villain of our story. And notice it isn't a person or a company. The villain is a mechanism. It's the cost of building a more resilient, more electrified economy, quietly flowing downhill until it lands on the household that never asked for any of it. That's the gap you've been feeling. The economy is investing in its own safety, and part of the tab is sitting on your kitchen table. And energy is only the most visible letter. The other 3 reach you more quietly. Healthcare keeps getting more expensive as systems modernize and the population ages, and that shows up in your premiums and deductibles long before it shows up in any headline. Defense spending rarely lands on a personal bill at all, but it leans on taxes and government borrowing, which can nudge up the cost of everything from mortgages to car loans over time. None of these are dramatic on their own. Together, though, they explain why so many costs are drifting in the same direction at once. So let's make it real, the way it actually shows up. Picture opening a power bill that used to sit around $100 and finding it has crept toward nearly $300. In some parts of the country, especially near the big data center clusters, that's roughly what's been happening. That jump is a car payment appearing out of nowhere. It's also a week of groceries, or the cushion that was supposed to go somewhere else, gone before you noticed. Now, most of us won't see a swing that dramatic, but the direction is the same almost everywhere, slowly up. And that slow climb is the thing to get ahead of, while it's still small enough to do something about. So here's what you can actually do this week. Pull up your last 3 electricity bills and look past the total. Find the rate, the price per kilowatt hour, and check whether that number itself is creeping up, separate from how much you used. That single line tells you whether you have a usage problem you can fix or a pricing trend you need to plan around. If it's the rate climbing, call your utility and ask about 2 words: budget billing. It spreads your cost evenly across the year so one brutal summer month doesn't blow up your budget. And if it turns out to be your usage, the cheapest wins are the boring ones, sealing the drafts around doors and windows, nudging the thermostat a couple of degrees, and asking your utility whether it offers rebates for efficient bulbs or appliances. None of that is glamorous, but it's money back in your pocket every single month. There's also one quieter thing worth checking, even if you don't think of yourself as an investor. If you have a retirement account through work, a 401k or something like it, open it once and look at what it actually holds. The rotation we just talked about is already flowing through the funds most households own without ever noticing. So this isn't about buying anything new. It's simply about knowing what you already own before you hear about it on the news. A few things are worth keeping an eye on from here. First, watch your own state. Utilities across the country asked regulators for a record pile of rate increases this year, and many of those requests are still pending. You can check yours in under 5 minutes. Search your state's name plus the words utility rate case, which is the formal request a utility files to raise prices, and see if there's a hearing coming, because some states let residents comment before anything gets approved. Second, keep an eye on where new data centers get announced near you. More of them in your region is usually an early signal of pressure on local rates down the line. And third, watch the broad direction of power prices. Analysts at one major bank expect household electricity prices to climb another 6% over the next couple of years before they ease. So this isn't a one-month blip. It's a trend with momentum. This story is still developing, and we'll be watching it closely as the next round of rate decisions rolls out. Here's the bigger habit to take from all of this. The economy is rotating toward safety, toward healthcare, energy, AI, and defense, and that shift is real and probably here for years. And yes, we know supercycle sounds like either a comic book villain or a very intense spin class. But the takeaway isn't to go chase those sectors hoping to strike it rich. It's simpler and steadier than that. Know what you already own. Watch the bills that are quietly rising, and build a little slack into your own life. The same just-in-case buffer the whole economy is suddenly racing to build. A small cushion in your budget is your personal version of resilience, and it's the one thing nobody can pass a cost down to. None of us controls the supercycle. You can absolutely control the size of your own cushion. Quick reminder, everything we cover on Decoded Money is for educational purposes only. None of this is financial advice, and we're not licensed financial advisors. Before you make any money moves, do your own research and talk to someone who knows your specific situation. If this was useful, hit subscribe. We do this every week. That's the Decode for this week. We'll see you in the next one.